It might sit better, I think. Yeah, I think so, because it's I guess so new it's not staying open. Let's see if it stays open any better. It still doesn't stay open. Huh. Chayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayo Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamunatira Vanachari Jamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jayam Vishnupada Paramahansa Paribrujakacharya Statadastata Shri Srimad His Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki, ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki, Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki, Prem Se Gaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Gopagopinath Shamakunda Radha Kunigiri Govardhana Ki, Shri Vrindavan Dhama Ki, Shri Mayapur Dhama Ki, Ganga Maya Ki, Jamuna Maya Ki, Bhakti Devi Ki, Tulasi Devi Ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda Ki, Jainatai Gaura Premanandi, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees, all glories to some devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Okay, so reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, in the 2nd chapter, where Maharaj Nimi meets the 9 Yogendras. So the 9 Yogendras, they're sons of, I think, Maharaj Rishabdev. He had 100 sons. So Bharat Maharaj is the famous one that we know. So then he was the emperor, of the world. And then of his brothers, then 81 of them became Brahmins and took up, performing all the different rituals and all that. Another 9, they took up activities as Kshatriyas and ruled the different parts of Bharatvarsha. And then these 9, the Yogendras, then they were Paramahamsas. So they just spoke on devotional service. They didn't do anything else. So then here, Sukadeva Goswami then is speaking. Text 1. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, eager to engage in the worship of Lord Krishna, O best of the Kurus, Narad Muni stayed for some time in Dwarka, which was always protected by the arms of Govinda. Purport. In the 2nd chapter of this canto, Bhagavad Dharma, or pure devotional service to Krishna, is explained by Narada to Narada to Vasudeva, who had inquired with devotion. Narad Muni cites a conversation between King Nimi and the Jayantayas. According to Jiva Goswami, the word Abhikshnam indicates that although Narad Muni was frequently sent by Lord Krishna here and there for various pastimes, such as inquiring about the affairs of the world, Narad continuously returned to reside in Dwarka. The word Krishnopasana Lakshasa indicates that Narada was very eager to be near Krishna and worship him. Because of the curse of Daksha, Narada is never allowed to live continuously in one place. Sri Sridhar Swami, however, has pointed out, Natasyam sapade prabhavaha. In Dwarka, there is no influence of curses or other such evils, because Dwarka is the abode of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and is always protected by his arms, as shown by the word Govinda Bhuja Guptayam. The conditioned souls are struggling within the kingdom of Maya against the cruel laws of material nature, such as birth, death, old age, and disease. But if such conditioned souls have the good fortune to enter the city of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whether Dwarka, Mathura, or Vrindavan, and live there under the direct protection of the omnipotent arms of the Supreme Lord, Krishna, they will experience the unlimited transcendental bliss of real life, which is eternal and which is meant to be lived in the personal company of Krishna. Right? So the material is what's not in connection with Krishna. Not that Krishna is not controlling it, he's running everything. He's running the whole material world. But he does it so through his energies. He personally doesn't need to get involved. His energies know what to do, they do all those things. But in his dham, where he's performing his pastimes, then there he's living, and that place is not under the control of the material energy. Right? It appears very similar, but it's not. It's the spiritual world and everything else is around. Because he performs the human pastimes, therefore the place looks very similar. Right? Well, we like that. But as we see here, the Narad Muni could reside there because then the curse of Daksha won't apply. So then that's the Lord protects the devotees, he takes care of the devotees. Does that make sense? So if we take shelter of the Lord, then we see that things work out more nicely. like that. Doesn't mean the material world it's still a material world. It's just we become unaffected. Right? Because it doesn't matter what's going on, it's whether you become affected or not. Does that make sense? Like I remember, you say, this would have been quite a long time ago. There's, it's like when earthquakes happen, they happen everywhere, and volcanoes, and it goes on everywhere. So this one time, because we were here, we were in India, so then I think in Azerbaijan, which is, a little bit above the Middle East there, they had an earthquake, and San Francisco had an earthquake. And so in Azerbaijan, then 25,000 people died in the earthquake. That's what died. Then there's going to be, of course, hospitalized. So many people, no homes, this, that, blah. It's a huge thing. So in the Indian papers, it was quite big. But then I noticed, I think Time Magazine or Newsweek then read, huge article on the San Francisco. I think 56 people died. So it's international news. So you'd see in the paper, you'd see headlines about San Francisco earthquake and this and that. And they always have those little on the side, little highlights of around the world. And in one of them, many columns, many down, it just has like one sentence that 25,000 people died in the earthquake in Azerbaijan. But 56 died, and like this. So if it happens to you, it's very important. If it doesn't happen to you, it's like, who cares? So. Yeah, so that's the whole point, is that if we're absorbed in Krishna, then even though the material world does all this weird things that it normally does, it doesn't affect you. You're just not worried about it. Does that make sense? Yes. Proud of Maya. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say as every place will have that. Yes, means that's the whole point, is that anything connected to Krishna, anyone can take advantage. And if they don't, then they'll be, living in that very thin layer of Prauda Maya, or the external energy. So even anywhere, even the temple, the dham, any place like that, you'll have that effect. Because someone can come in and just see the material. Like the demons, they come into Vrindavan. They're not seeing the glories and how everything's Chintamani and like that. They just see the material aspect. That here's the guy who killed my relative or whatever it is. And so then they always have that. They'll be on there. But it's all going on at the same time. That's the effect of the Tatastha Shakti. It allows the external and the internal to function in the same place at the same time. So someone can be in the same space, and they're in the material world, and in the same space is the spiritual world. Krishna's in the spiritual world, his associates, and the demon may be there, they're in the material world, even though they're right there and they're interacting. That's the far out thing. That's what Tatastha Shakti can do. That's what it does as a potency. So it's a very special kind of arrangement. So that's how your Gokul or Boma Lila takes place, is these two function at once, and when the pastimes are manifest, then anybody could see Krishna, and the associates and all that. But if they have that devotion, then they'll actually see from under the internal potency. If they don't have devotion, they'll actually see from the external potency. So it's one of those things that Krishna can do, like that. So yeah, so you'll have that. It means you can. The energy will function. It will transform and do everything. But in the spiritual world, it's transforming to please Krishna. But here, it's transforming by the time factor. It's designed to not make it comfortable. You know, whatever is there, it will change. So the only way you remain unaffected is if you are transcendentally situated. It means if you're in devotional service, then it won't bother you. Does that make sense? Yeah. So then that's what you. So we strive to always be absorbed in Krishna, and then we'll be unaffected. Yeah. Okay. Yes. That the? Yes. Yeah, it's the marginal energy. We come from that. It's not that we are the marginal energy. You understand? You have to remember when they're making the point, they're saying we control the horizontal, we control the vertical. They don't say you control it. Does that make sense? We're from the Tatastha Shakti, but we're not the total Tatastha Shakti. But the point is what's the point of your Tatasthaness if you're not have the opportunity to be in contact with the external? How are you in your body? Your body is material, and the soul is spiritual. How do those two stay together? Means some kind of special glue, blue tack, super glue, chewing gum, maybe. Yeah, okay. We'll just move on. So, yeah. Text 2. My dear King, in the material world, the conditioned souls are confronted by death at every step of life. Therefore, who among the conditioned souls would not render service to the lotus feet of Lord Mukunda, who is worshipable even for the greatest of liberated souls? Purport. The word Indriyavan is significant in this verse. Indriyavan means possessing senses. Although we are conditioned within the material world, by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, we are awarded a human body, which possesses distinct senses such as the eyes, ears, tongue, nose, and skin. Generally, the conditioned souls use these senses in a false attempt to exploit the material nature for sense gratification. But our material senses and their objects are temporary, and it is not possible to become peaceful or happy in the attempt to gratify our temporary senses with the temporary sense objects offered by Maya, the illusory energy of the Lord. In fact, our strenuous endeavor to satisfy the material senses inevitably brings exactly the opposite result, namely material suffering. Man is attracted to a woman. Being sexually aroused, he marries her, and soon there's a family that requires ever-increasing support. In this way, his innocent and simple life is ended, and he spends the major portion of his life working hard like an ass to support the demands of his family. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila describes very clearly that in spite of the exhausting work a man performs throughout his life, his family is ultimately dissatisfied, and when the exhausted father reaches old age, the irritated family members look upon him just as farmers look upon an old and useless ox. Sometimes the sons dream of receiving their father's money as an inheritance and secretly wish for him to die. Nowadays, people strongly resent the trouble of caring for elderly parents and therefore send them to an institution, where they die lonely and neglected after a life of hard work for the so-called loved ones. One doctor in England is seriously proposing euthanasia for elder persons who are no longer productive. Like that. Nowadays, some people, desiring material sense gratification but hoping to avoid the inconvenience of family life, try to enjoy free sexual relations with women without the trouble of marriage. Through birth control and abortion, they eliminate the disturbance of caring for children. In this way, they hope to enjoy material sense gratification without any material impediment. By the laws of nature, however, such persons become bound in a network of sinful reactions by avoiding their real duty to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay, Sarvato Mrityu also indicates that birth and death occur on every planet in the universe. Therefore, our so-called space travel and cosmic consciousness are useless, since there is no eternal life anywhere within the material cosmos. In conclusion, to understand the futility of engaging in the service of anything other than Krishna, and to engage instead in serving that which is eternal and full of bliss, is the highest possible development of intelligence. Although our present intelligence is narrow, being conditioned by the laws of nature, we can create unlimited good fortune for ourselves by taking shelter of the lotus feet of Mukunda, learning to discriminate between that which is temporary and useless and that which is eternal and real. And so the main element that one's trying to do is to be able to discriminate between what's eternal and what's temporary. That's very, very important. So the connection to Krishna, that's what's eternal, that's what's permanent. And the other aspects, that's what's temporary. Because you see, that's always changing. So that's the part where we see difficulties come up, miseries are there, the transformations are there. But when we identify what's spiritual, what's direct, then that's the part, then we become satisfied. That's the area that we can find satisfaction. Does that make sense? But in the temporary, you can't, because we're eternal, it's temporary. It'll never work. Right? And the point is that temporariness is to bring out the aspect of the temporariness. Well then, so does that make sense? So even though it's transforming, it's giving variety, its transformation is creating that sense of temporariness. While in the spiritual world, the variety that's there, the variety just increases then the pleasure between Krishna's devotees. So it has a different function. Right? So there it's to increase happiness. Here it's to let you know that there's not a whole lot happening. Right? Does that make sense? Yes.
Within the transient nature of things,
Right.
there is still the concept of becoming and then not becoming. So that's an eternal feature, yeah?
Becoming and not becoming.
Things happen and then, they manifest and they die off.
Oh, okay.
That process itself is an eternal process.
Yes. No.
So even behind the...
Of course. But our experience is that of temporary.
Well, if we're looking at the individual thing, yes.
Yes.
If we're looking at the
Yes, but that's looking at the eternal. Yes, so that's what it's meaning there is that if we discriminate between that which is temporary and useless and that which is eternal and real. So if you see like what you just mentioned, you're seeing the eternal aspect. So because of the eternal, therefore, then we won't be affected by the temporary. That's the whole idea. So the same situation, you can see it connected with the eternal, or you can see it connected with the temporary. It's just a matter of vision, whichever one. So if you can switch to the other one, then it works so much better. Does that make sense? Yeah. Okay. Text 3. One day the sage among the demigods, Narada, came to the house of Vasudeva. After worshipping Narada with suitable paraphernalia, seating him comfortably and respectfully bowing down to him, Vasudeva spoke as follows. Sri Vasudeva said, "My lord, your visit, like that of a father to his children, is for the benefit of all living beings. You especially help the most wretched among them, as well as those who are advanced on the path toward the Supreme Lord, Uttama Shloka." Yeah, okay. The word Bhagavat, Sridhar Swami has stated, the word Bhagavat Rupasya indicates that Narad Muni is an expansion of the Supreme Lord, and that his activities, therefore, bring immense benefit for all living beings. In the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Narad Muni is described as a manifestation of the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There it is stated that Narada is especially empowered to give instructions in the art of devotional service to Krishna. Narada is especially able to advise the conditioned souls as to how they can dovetail their present activities with the devotional service of Krishna without unnecessarily disrupting their present life. Right? So that's a very important element, is because that one has a life, one's doing all the different things. That's not actually the difficulty, right? It's not that things are there, you have things, you do things. That's not actually the problem. The problem is not seeing things connected to Krishna. That's the problem, right? Because you see in Vrindavan and Dwarka, then families are there, they have their houses, they have their activities, but they'll see everything connected to Krishna. That's the main thing. So because of seeing that, then they don't have problems. They don't have difficulties, right? Because they're always absorbed in the Lord, you know. Okay. Then, yeah. Yes. So. Then the idea is Narad Muni is then showing how in the situation one's in, one's house, one's family, the money, the activities, then how to connect that to Krishna. Right? So without unnecessarily, it means there may be some necessity if certain things in what you're doing it was going to be difficult to connect to Krishna or it's not like that. One may make adjustments there, but in general, the principle of that one has one's house and family and everything like that, that doesn't have to change. That's not necessary. So Narad Muni then shows how that can be connected. Right? Does that make sense? So Krishna talks about that, and Narad Muni, as he says here, being the mercy incarnation of the Lord, then he's always showing how in that simple way everybody can be connected. Yeah. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati has defined the word akripana by quoting from the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad 3.9.10. O daughter of Gargacharya, he who leaves this world without learning about the infallible Supreme is a kripana, or miser. In other words, we are awarded the human form of life so we may understand our eternal blissful relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Right? So that's what human life is for. That's what's special about human life, is that you can understand the Lord. Well, okay. Squeeze this thing, yeah, okay. Okay, very good. Thank you. So, miser means you have something, you don't use it, right? So, misers, generally speaking, it means if you look from another angle, you might consider they're rich. But because they never spend the money, they're called misers. They're not called rich. Because factually, according to Niti Shastra, if you're a miser, you're as good as if you're poor. Because the miser lives like a poor person. So his effect, the experience, how he goes through, he's a poor person. Though he may have a big, a large bank balance. But so therefore, one has human form of life, which means you can use it to be God conscious. But they don't. And so then that's a miser. So one should avoid that. One should use the facilities one has. That doesn't mean you waste it. It just means it should properly be used. Does that make sense? You know, so where you would save money, you do, and then where it would be good to spend, you know, because of the interaction, relationships, or service like this, then it's spent there. So you don't just waste money. You're careful about it, but then you're seeing what's happening. Does that make sense? Yeah. So the human form is meant to do the same thing. Right? You perform your duties, your activities, so you can maintain yourself, but it has to be for the purpose of Krishna consciousness. Right? Text 5. The activities of demigods lead to both misery and happiness for living beings. But the activities of great saints like you, who have accepted the infallible Lord as their very soul, result only in the happiness of all beings. Yeah. So as the demigods, see, they're in control of the, how the workings of the universe. So from that you may get something nice, you may get something not nice, depending upon your karma and all that. So once it's still working in that circle. But for but for someone like Narad Muni, that's not happening. They're only working for the eternal benefit of the living entity. So you won't get a negative side. That's the important part. You don't get a negative side. Does that make sense? So, yes?
Is that negative in perception or reality?
Depends, what do you call reality? See, here's some fun, okay? That, according to Vedanta, is that the process of reasoning, so it means reasoning will be when the intelligence is applied with when the mind is applied with the intelligence and analyzing the situation. But to do that, you first have to get information, right? So then when the senses go out to the sense objects, then they're met with, it meets with ignorance, because everything's covered by ignorance, because what something is technically, it means there's the, yeah. So that covering of what it is has to be removed. And so there's a potency called how do you call it? Pramana Chaitanya. And depending upon the individual living entity, their consciousness, what species of life there are, they can see different things. You know, like you see the coffee table, the ant just sees a flat surface it's walking on. It doesn't know it's a table. So that means the covering is heavier. So they can only just get a certain amount. We can get more. Someone else may look at it and go, oh, wow, that's a 1700, this and that. So there's more, of what they can see. Yes?
But actually it seems to me that what we see is only what value we attribute.
Yes.
We are only seeing value.
Yes.
So we are seeing tools to our
Value, yes. So that's when we see that we have 5 levels of consciousness, so that depends upon what is your goal. So if it's sense gratification, you will see sense gratification. Well, if it's the more social and economic, you'll see that. If it's performance of duties, if it's the liberation, or if it's devotion, you're going to see according to the levels of consciousness, right? So, right? So that potency that's there will uncover enough for you to see that. But this is only seeing. At this point, what's important is that this is just, it's subjective, but at the same time, it doesn't have, it has no emotional content at this point. That's the important part we're getting to. Then the second phase is that the mind actually takes the form of whatever it is you're seeing. So if you're looking at this table, the mind actually takes that shape of that table. And whatever you perceive of the table, the shape or the texture or whatever it is, it'll take that, because that's what goes then, will go into the memory. Then the third stage is now it switches from just the senses, what they're bringing into the mind, so the manas, it switches over to now the consciousness of the chitta. And now you'll look at the memories, and then what previous memories are there. And these memories, then they're gained from analyzing, then according to your identity, choosing something like that, according to your values, as you're mentioning. And that gives what's called a samskar, or impression. So the memory will be all samskars. And then depending upon how you're analyzing what's there and what effects are there, it may change what you're seeing. Your samskar may change, like your samskar is good, but then what you're being perceived is not good, it may change your samskar, or the samskar is good and what you're seeing is not good, it'll change that. Does that make sense? Like let's say you've met some people and they're always nice, and then something happens where they're not nice, so that may change how your impression of them, like that. Does that make sense? Or they're always nice to you but not nice to someone else, so you're saying they're great and the other person's saying they're not, so does that make sense? So that's then going back to the point what you were saying about is it real or not. So therefore this is the fun part, is that, so that's just mechanically how it works. So you're seeing something, right? What we would call the facts. And in the modern intellectual academic context, we would say that is concrete. right? And then our particular, when we apply our values and all that, which we call subjective, the other one we'd say objective, we would say the subject that would be abstract, right? Because different people have different this and that. The interesting thing, the Vedas give the definition exact opposite. What you're perceiving, what's there, the thing itself, that's the abstract. Because one thing can have so many different perceptions. So it's abstract because it can hold all that. You bring 10 people to look at the same table, so the table is abstract. Then what they perceive and then gives their impression, that's what's concrete to you.
Yeah. So table in itself is an abstract concept.
Yes. Even though it's there, it's a fact, but it's an abstract because it's until you perceive it.
Yeah. And then you'll perceive it to your values.
Yes.
I'll perceive it to mine.
Yes, and you probably deal with that every day, all day, because that's what's going on. Because they'll say, no, this is the fact. It's not. No, it's my perception of the fact.
Yeah. Well, the courts are set up to try to determine what they are.
Yes. Because how it how it affects the person is the actual concrete. But at the same time as then, fortunately in the Vedic system, then it will give what would be the standard perception of something. So as long as your perception falls within that, then that works very nicely, and then you can hold everything together as a society. But if in the contemporary context, where it's all about whatever everybody feels and all that, there's no common context, so you can't actually create a common platform for social interaction.
Yeah, the postmodern is a completely non-functioning vision of reality.
Yes.
Because it's so subjective.
Yes.
No real sense of understanding the abstract.
Yes, yes.
Just say there is no abstract, there's only my experience.
Yes. So that's the problem is then that's fine for you, then don't complain that others are, like that. So it's just like, you see it that way, they see it the other way. They because I think it was he says, grandfather was quoting something from the Midwest. It says, I'm not aiming my gun at you. You just happen to be standing in the direction where I'm pointing my gun. It has nothing to do with you. So if you don't want to get shot, you move. I'm just pointing that way. That's like that. So it's just that kind of. So unless there's the objective is abstract, and the subjective is concrete because you're a person. So the idea is Krishna consciousness is bringing everything in line with, the subject nature of Krishna. What he as a person likes. Because he is everything. So the objective aspect is there. But the objective, because it's not concrete, it's not as attractive. You have the world, it's functioning, how the modes work, the mechanics of it. All that is going on. That's not actually that attractive. We may think it's attractive to some degree because then we can think, we can have control. The more we know, the more control. But Krishna already knows everything and has control of everything and is everything. So, how long, it means we do something for a short time and we get jaded. You can imagine this is the eternal position. So that's not the interesting point because it's just his existence. So therefore, for him, the personal interaction between him and the devotees based on devotion, bhakti, prema, that's what's attractive to him. So that's what's concrete. So that's where it'll come from. But because we're thinking, you leave Krishna out of it, then what you're left with is the abstract. So we'll say the abstract is the concrete. But that's the material consciousness. So we're trying to shift the consciousness back to the spiritual, where we don't see it that way. So for whatever we perceive, then we'll perceive how will this situation be used to please Krishna? And if I can see something and I have a connection to that, a duty within that, then I will take part. And if not, then I won't. So that's actually the perception that goes on. So that's solid. That's why we say that's real. Well, if you see outside of that, even though it may be concrete to you, it's not actually real, because it's only dealing with the conditioned nature that you have. It exists, means, objectively it's a fact, but, its existence is there, but what you perceive and what you value then is temporary, because it only deals with the conditioned nature, and it will change. So the Vedic is going to, what's actually connected with the soul, and the soul connected with Krishna, because that's eternal. Soul not connected to Krishna, even those situations, those soul, that they're spiritual, that remains. But the experience they get, the concrete for them, will be constantly changing. But because it's constantly changing, it's temporary, so that's what's not real about it. So it's inferior. You can say it's concrete. So that's why sometimes you'll see in the explanation, and they'll say, it's real, but then those the really real. Like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. Yeah. Does that work? Yeah. So that's, if one can get through to that, it actually makes it easier to see what people's motives are and what they're doing, if you look at it that way. Because generally we tend to look at, well, what's the fact? No, it's how he's perceiving it is the real point. And because he's saying it's like this, but it's like that, so then what's his reason? Then when you see his reason, then you understand the whole motive, then it's easier to deal with. Does that make sense?
Well, that's how conflict is settled for facts and change.
Yes. So if you can just show them, okay, you're saying this, they're saying that. If you can figure out what they're both saying, if you see what the common point, then you show that. If not, you're showing what the others, and then hopefully they'll work it out, who does get the, what do you call it? The points on the airplane, the frequent flyer points. Yeah, that was who gets that and who gets the dog.
No
one wants the dog. Okay. Well, then it's straightforward. Okay, sometimes, Okay, yeah. So you get the frequent flyer points, and the pound gets the dog, right? Okay, yeah. So there's no red or blue sticker on the dog? No, okay. Okay. So
I have a question.
Yes.
Sometimes it's with the perception. Sometimes about some devotees we have perceptions, and whereas it's an offense, if you see a Vaishnava, your heart should get joyous and happy, it should be smiling.
Right.
But sometimes we have perception, and now with all of this talk, I'm realizing that is that abstract? Obviously, that is abstract. My perception.
No. Our perception is we're viewing, but we're getting. It's concrete to us that we're getting a negative feeling. But the point is why is that there? Because it's not based on pure devotion, so it's based on something else. So that's then we see is that what it's based on shift to what actually it should be. Then that will change, that we mentioned before. Through intelligence, you can change the effects of the samskars by changing if your identity is I'm servant of Krishna, then it changes how you perceive things, right? Because if I'm the Lord and Master of all I survey, you'll see things in one way.
So how to, in practical, how can I personally improve that? Like how can I rejoice in seeing everybody and not just be, like, oh, I like this awesome. Hi,
yeah.
And
Okay.
then I said, Hare Krishna. It's just.
But it's.
Hare Krishna. Hi,
Yeah.
How
Okay.
to do that? So how can I
Yeah. But the point is that it's a matter of we're servant of Krishna, so then you have to look at it. It's about Krishna's perception in it, and it's about that Krishna is pleased. Right? So with the interaction of the devotees and all that. So if Krishna's pleased, we'll get a good experience. But it's not technically about our experience. You understand?
Yes.
Because if we're looking for our experience, then we'll see certain situations our experience is nice, certain is less nice. So then we'll judge good and bad based on that. But if we judge it on what's pleasing to Krishna, then that changes how it works. Is that okay? Okay. 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 Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So, okay. Okay, Srila Prabhupada in his commentary on the verses has portrayed the sadhu as follows. A sadhu, as described above, is a devotee of the Lord. His concern, therefore, is to enlighten people in devotional service to the Lord. That is his mercy. He knows that without devotional service to the Lord, human life is spoiled. The devotee travels all over the country, door to door, preaching, be Krishna conscious, be a devotee of Lord Krishna. Don't spoil your life in simply fulfilling your animal propensities. Human life is meant for self-realization or Krishna consciousness. These are the preachings of the sadhu. Okay. Yes, so we see here that Narad Muni having that nature, then he's always trying to help all the living entities. That's why he goes. And we see, as mentioned before, then Krishna sometimes sends him here and there. But when he's not doing something specific, then during Krishna's pastimes, when he's present, he'll come back to Dwarka and then stay there. And then the next commission, he'll go out again. And then when the pastimes wind up, then he won't be staying there. Then he'll go just travel the universe, because then, then the curse of Daksha applies, right? Text 6. Those who worship the demigods receive reciprocation from the demigods in a way just corresponding to the offering. The demigods are intendants of karma, like a person's shadow, but sadhus are actually merciful to the fallen. Right? So according to your worship of the demigods, then they'll reciprocate in that particular way, but it will be material. Right? That's the thing. But the sadhus, then they're actually merciful because they'll give Krishna. So it may sometimes be materially seeming beneficial, and sometimes it may not. It's what's going to be beneficial for you spiritually, right? For increasing your devotion, understanding how to please Krishna. That's the main aspect. Right? Okay, in this regard, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented that unless one is engaged as a surrendered soul in the devotional service of the Lord, you can actually be considered nishkama, or free from all personal desires. Sometimes the materialistic person will engage in charity or altruistic activities. In this way, consider himself a selfless worker. Similarly, those who are engaged in mental speculation with the ultimate goal of merging into the impersonal Brahman aspect of the Lord also advertise themselves as being selfless or desireless. According to Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, however, such karmas and jnanis, while busy in the so-called selflessness, are in fact servants of lusty desires. Right? In other words, they have not perfectly understood their position as eternal servants of God. Right? So they're considering that they're the friend of everyone, or I'm doing some very good work, or I'll get benefit from this work, or I'm freeing myself from material entanglement, rather than seeing that they're servant of Krishna, and all these things happen by Krishna's mercy. Right? So if one's always working to please Krishna, then we see that then things move forward very nicely. If we're looking at the material benefit that will be gained, then there'll always be a weakness in the whole consideration, because in that consideration, then we're looking at what benefit we'll get, rather than how it pleases Krishna. Right? That's the difference. The activity may remain the same if it's your duty. Right? Because generally we say, saying Narad Muni, you don't have to change the lifestyle. That's as long as you're doing your duties. If you're doing something outside of your duty, then by adjusting that, then you'll see that things start to go smoothly. But otherwise, whatever is your duty, if you're following that, then you don't have to worry. It stays within the same position. Okay. Okay, Madhvacharya is also quoted Rishis want happiness for all beings and are almost always incapable of tolerating the unhappiness of men. Nevertheless, the demigods are superior because they're very dear to Lord Hari. But although Sri Madhvacharya has placed the demigods in a higher position than the merciful rishis, Srila Jiva Goswami has stated, the sadhus are actually better than the demigods because the sadhus are merciful regardless of the pious or impious acts of the conditioned souls. So Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur then points out that in the statement by Madhvacharya, the word rishi or says indicates the so-called sadhus or saintly persons among the karmis and jnanis. Like that. So it's not meaning the actual persons like Narad Muni. So that makes sense, yeah. So those who are professing karma and jnana and doing like that, then the demigods are better because they're devotees of the Lord. But then better than that are great sages like Narad Muni, who then are on the platform of pure devotion. So in other words, anybody in devotional service is better than someone who's not. And of those who are in devotional service, then someone who's practicing pure devotion is better than mixed devotion. That's just being pointed out, right? Okay. Text 7. O Brahmana, although I am satisfied by simply by seeing you, I still wish to inquire about those duties which give pleasure to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any mortal who faithfully hears about them is freed from all kinds of fear. Purport. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, Narad Muni might have been reluctant to instruct Vasudeva because of natural respect for Vasudev's exalted position as the father of Krishna, right? Because that's not just anybody is there. So he's the father of Krishna. That means he's on a very elevated platform. But because of the human pastimes, they'll consider they're not. It's just the nature of how the devotee will work. So Narad Muni might be reluctant to instruct him. Even though he's saying, us householders and this and that, but here us householders, God happens to be your son, so it's not quite the same as everybody else, right? Narad might have thought that since Vasudeva was already perfect in Krishna consciousness, there was no need to instruct him in the process of devotional service. Therefore, anticipating Narada's possible reluctance, Vasudeva specifically requested Narada to preach to him about devotional service to Krishna. This is the symptom of a pure devotee. Pure devotee of Krishna never considers himself exalted. To the contrary, he meekly feels that his devotional service is most imperfect, but that somehow or other Lord Krishna, out of his causeless mercy, is accepting such imperfect service. Lord Chaitanya said, Mahaprabhu has stated in this regard, Trinadapi sunichena, tarodapi sahishnuna, amanina manadena, kirtaniya sadahari. One can chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, feeling self lower than the straw on the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and ready to offer all respects to others. Right? So, if chanting can always go on because of this mentality of wanting to serve, one has that humble mood. That's how it goes on. One is respecting others, not looking for that respect. Devotees then can always then be absorbed. That's the process. Right? There's not some other process like that. Yeah. Text 8. In a previous birth on this earth, right? So we see that between the devotees, then they know what the effects of what they're dealing in the culture. So then they're seeing that by this, then Narad might think like this. So then he'll phrase his point in a way that will adjust it so it won't have that problem with Narad Muni. So he makes it into a general kind of aspect. So he says, "O Brahma, though I am satisfied simply by seeing you, I still wish to inquire about those duties which give pleasure to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Any mortal who faithfully hears about them is freed from all kinds of fear." Right? So he's brought it into this point is, please just tell, what is pleasing to the Lord, and anyone who hears this, then they'll get great benefit. So it's not about him and his instructions to him. But at the same time, he's not saying, oh, it's for everybody else, I don't need it. Right? So it's just very, very nicely done. We see the etiquette is very, very good. Text 8. In a previous birth on this earth, I worshiped the Supreme Lord Ananta, who alone can award liberation. But because I desired to have a child, I did not worship him for liberation. Thus, I was bewildered by the Lord's illusory energy. According to Sridhar Swami, the word kila, meaning indeed, it is true, it is said, or as it is well known, indicates that Vasudeva was remembering the words of the Lord had spoken to him when the Lord had appeared as four-armed Vishnu in the prison of Kamsa. Srila Jiva Goswami states that from the anxiety of Vasudeva, which is expressed in this verse by the words Apu Jayam, it is to be discerned that Vasudeva had heard of the curse of the Brahmanas at Pindaraka against the Yadu dynasty, and that he could understand from this curse that the Lord's disappearance from the earth was imminent. Vasudeva understood that the Lord's manifest pastimes within this universe were coming to an end, and he now lamented that he had not directly taken advantage of the opportunity to worship Krishna, to go back home, back to Godhead. Right? So he's already in the place and everything like that, but they'll think like that, because they think, I worship the Lord to have him as a son. I didn't ask for pure devotion. But of course, he's only coming because of the pure devotion. But still, the point is this is how they'll think. It's just standard. Yeah, Srila Prabhupada has emphasized that we should desire to go back home, back to Godhead, rather than to try to bring the Lord to this world as our son. Right? Nor can we artificially imitate severe penances of Vasudeva and Devaki, performed for thousands of heavenly years in their previous verses, Sutapta and Prishni. In this connection, Srila Prabhupada writes, if we want to get the Supreme Personality of Godhead to become one of us in this material world, this requires great penance. But if we want to go back to Godhead, Chaktva Deham Punarjanmam Naitimam Eti Sorjana, we need only understand him and love him. Through love only we can very easily go back home, back to Godhead. Yeah. So the chanting process is very effective. So Srila Prabhupada concludes, therefore one need not undergo severe penances for many thousands of years. One need only learn how to love Krishna and be always engaged in his service. Sevan mukhe hi jivadao swayam eva spuratada. Right, so therefore being absorbed in how Lord Chaitanya has given us through the chanting of the holy name, practice of devotional service, engaging others, then that will very easily develop our relationship with Krishna. Right? So we don't have to do all the penances and austerities to like that. Text 9. My dear Lord, you are always true to your vow. Please instruct me clearly so that by your mercy I may easily free myself from material existence, which is full of many dangers and keeps us constantly bound in fear. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, the word Vishvatob Hayat indicates that Vasudeva very much feared the curse of the Brahmins, as one can become perfect by worshipping the Vaishnavas. By displeasing the Vaishnavas, one can bring about all misfortune. Thus Vasudeva feared the curse delivered by the Brahmins at Pindaraka Tirtha. So here is that it would mean the disappearance of the Lord in his pastimes. So that's what he's afraid of. He's not worried that the curse then is going to create some external misfortune, because they're not going to be affected by that. So for him, he's very much affected by it because of the aspect of the closing of the Lord's pastimes. Means the pastimes will go on eternally, but now they'll be apricot, so then they can't be seen. But so the prakat means that they're available, people who can see them can get that benefit. And the aprakat, only those who are involved in it, the eternal associates, they're there. Does that make sense? So they're both always going on. But the prakat, then what we can see, it'll be manifest for a certain amount of time. So he's now worried that that will come to an end, and so therefore the specialness of those pastimes will then stop. So he's not worried actually for himself.
So Narada Muni is participating in
In both. Yeah, but the point is, but when it's prakat, that's then where we can get the advantage. Because the aprakat is not there for us to see. Like that. Does that make sense? So all these pastimes that are mentioned, these are all from prakat lila. Means what can be seen. And then from those it's put together and explained, and the acharyas give our understanding of what's happening and like that. Yeah. Okay. Text 10. Sukadeva Goswami continued, O king, Devarshi Narada was pleased by the questions of the highly intelligent Vasudeva, because they suggested the transcendental qualities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They reminded Narada of Lord Krishna. Thus Narada replied to Vasudeva as follows. Right? So he's very pleased with him because of how he's very intelligently looking at that. Highly intelligent. That means the character is there. He's not just clever to get his work done. He has the character to know what's the proper way of dealing and interacting and all that. Text 11. Sri Narada said, O best of the Sattvatas, you have quite correctly asked about the eternal duty of the living entity towards the Supreme Lord. Such devotional service to the Lord is so potent that its performance can purify the entire universe. Okay, in a similar statement in the second canto, then, my dear king, your question is glorious because it is very beneficial to all kinds of people. The answer to this question is the prime subject matter for hearing, and is approved by all transcendentalists. So this understanding about devotional service, that's actually the most important subject matter to discuss. Then in context of that, then other subject matters have meaning. So if you can see anything in connection with Krishna, then it has a value. Does that make sense? But if it's not, then it's just, a burden. It's just ordinary work. Does that make sense? Yeah. And Srila Sutta Goswami, he also congratulated the sages of Naimisharanya, saying, O sages, I have been justly questioned by you. Your questions are worthy because they relate to Lord Krishna, and so are of relevance to the world's welfare. Only questions of this sort are capable of completely satisfying the self. Right? So that's what kind of discussions or questions we should be looking for. Right? Those that will bring about an understanding of Krishna and our relationship with Krishna, and how to apply whatever we're doing in connection with Krishna. That's proper questioning. Because to just know about other things isn't as important. Right? It may have its place, but it's not as important. What's important is how it relates to Krishna. Yes.
What about moving people from ignorance and passion towards goodness in the correct subjective, but not necessarily because they're not ready?
It means you can try as long as you can see is that it's there, and then whenever is the right moment, then to bring something in. One may be able to do, one can do that, but that should be your intent, is get them to the point of. So it's a matter of you're seeing where they should be, where they are now, and then if there's some way that you can nudge them in that direction. But it shouldn't be as that, it shouldn't be on the negative side that, Krishna consciousness is something they can't appreciate, so therefore we won't talk about it. It's about they don't have the qualifications for it, therefore we're pushing them in the direction. You understand? So when you're positively trying to do something, while the other one you're avoiding doing something. You understand? It's just a mentality thing.
You've got the nuance of the defense as well.
Yes, but I'm saying is that you're trying to make them qualified so that they can. Just like Narad Muni with Dasaratnakar. Then when he first stopped him on the road, because he was a highway bandit, that was his job, his 9 to 5, like that. So then Narad Muni stopped him and he asked him, why are you doing this? He said he has to maintain the family. He says, but the occupation, it's sinful, so therefore there's a reaction for that. And so you're doing this for your family, you're being sinful for your family. Are they willing to share in this reaction? Like that. And the Dasaratnakars, of course they would. He says, Nard says, you should go ask them. And he says, and so then Dasaratnakar's point, and if they say yes, then, whatever wealth is there, you take. But if they say no, then you should reconsider what you're doing. And then as a sage, then because he gave his word, he has to remain there. So the Dasaratnakar went home. And then he asked his family, and their point was, your business is to maintain us. How you do that, that's your problem. So if it's sinful, you keep the reaction. What does it got to do with us? So he was a little disappointed. So then he went back and started talking to Nara. So after that, now Nara could explain about the devotional service. So it's not that you can't do that, but that's what you're trying to do, is see how to, you understand? It's from a positive side. It's what can you do to make them qualified, rather than they're not qualified, how to avoid devotional service. Like that. Does that make sense? Yeah. So it's just a matter of time, yes.
So with the intent of trying to bring people to a sacred platform, the overall intent is to introduce Krishna. It's not just good enough to try and get them to a sacred.
No, because the modes of nature, that'll happen anyway. At some point, everybody's in the mode of goodness, and at some point, they're all in the mode of ignorance. So they, they keep going around in a circle from Brahma down to the Indragopa germ, and then back up to Brahma. And they just keep going around and around, like that. Yeah. Is that? Yeah, so then you're trying, because sometimes people are pushing, about mode of goodness, and you have to establish that. But mode of goodness is established. If you're establishing pure goodness, why won't the mode of goodness be there? So for us to separately establish the mode of goodness isn't actually important. It's establishing pure goodness. Then when people are not so conscious, they'll be in goodness. If you try to establish goodness, then it'll drop the passion.
I think maybe that we get overwhelmed because there's so much karma, so much. So let's bring them to the sacred platform at least.
Yeah.
And maybe they can hear about Krishna. But you're saying can bring Krishna in.
Yeah, but then let's take the example of another preacher. Then you have people that are situated on just doing things for themselves only. And so then the next stage up is to work cooperatively, that they can all together work and get benefit. Like that. So to do that, you have to, talk about being good and being nice and, turning the other cheek and doing all these kind of things. And, but at the same time as then, 2,000 years later, that's as far as it's gotten. Who's come to pure devotional service? So that's the point. They're living it, but no one's catching it. It's like, does that make sense? So, he died for our sins, so now we don't have to do anything. What about he lived a lifestyle, you follow that lifestyle? No, they don't do that. Right? Because otherwise, if they did, they'd have to be wearing bed sheets like us, right? So, yeah, so.
I think it depends what you understand the symbol of Christ to actually mean. Because in a sense, doesn't it just mean it's about sacrifice?
That's there, but then it'll be thought that you don't have to do anything. He's already done everything.
Well, yeah, except if you bring it down off the cross, as it were, to say that really the lesson is that one should voluntarily accept suffering in the sense that it will create a shift in consciousness because of what's happening.
Yes, But then, yes, but then it's sacrifice and consideration of the others and this and that. But then what about the aspect of duties, God-given duties? Then what about the platform of the soul? And then what about devotion to the Lord as a person?
Yes.
So that's the difficulty, is that one may oscillate back and forth between higher and lower stages of the pranamoyic platform.
There's a transcendent aspect to that.
There is, but the point is that transcendent is only within the material. The individual may be working on a higher platform, but its perception is that by following this, you'll go to the heavenly planets, which are a little bit less than transcendent. You know, like that. So, yeah. So the difficulty is not that there's not something there to gain from it, but the point is you have to use higher levels of consciousness to appreciate it. Yeah, but the problem is just getting them from the first platform of consciousness, the animal, up to the second one. Though he was practicing, higher, but the point is it's not. So that's why just doing that doesn't necessarily bring about the desired results. Does that make sense? Because otherwise, why did he end up on the cross in the first place? You know what I'm saying? Means if no, but that's another thing. They're looking in it. It means, how you say, hindsight's 20/20. Yeah, but at the time, why aren't they? If he's their savior, why aren't they fighting for him? But it's kind of like nobody's there. And the only ones, because they're all afraid that they'll get into trouble. So the only ones that stay are the Marys, right? Because no one's going to bother them. So then, how does it, you know what I'm saying? So it's not like there's an elevation, but it hasn't come to that really personal platform and all these kind of things, that commitment, that dedication. As you see with time, then they get a little bit more, but still, the whole concept and lifestyle and everything, that's not understood. Yeah, like that. So that's why one has to be careful, is that you're applying just what's going to be useful to be able to get them to give Krishna consciousness. But along with this, then they can take prasad, and things like that, so they're doing devotional service though they don't know it. And then at some point, then you may be able to explain. But any exposure to, kirtan or the holy name and prasad, then, you always try to do. Like that.
So this morning we were talking about the soft and the hard.
Yes.
The soft you don't really mention Krishna yet, and then the hard you go straight in.
Yeah.
So it seems that from this discussion it's really we need to go straight into the hard.
It's not a matter of the hard, because what we were mentioning this morning is what distinguishes hard and soft. Here is that, so you're dealing with the philosophy and you're dealing with religion. Right? So religion is the application, is the field that you're going to apply the philosophy in. Just like, let's say, for example, varnashram. So that's religion. So for us, we're engaging in Krishna's service. And that's the value of it. Without Krishna's service, it doesn't have a value. So hard preaching means varnashram everybody has to follow, because that's the proper thing to do. It's the right thing. It's the only thing that gives anything of any benefit. We haven't mentioned Krishna. You understand? Soft is oh, well, they're different. They're not going to, it'll freak them out and all these different things. So we'll avoid all the whole varnashram thing. You understand? But still no Krishna. That's my point. Soft preaching and hard preaching don't include Krishna. Not directly. Preaching, it's about Krishna. So then you find what aspect the people could appreciate, use examples, use the words, terminologies, like that they could appreciate, and give them an understanding of the position of the Lord. Like that. Because if you work above religion, it doesn't create any, there's no concrete, no samskars or concrete experiences for them to start freaking out. Because if you're working on the Vedanta level, they don't have experience of that because they've only dealt on the material platform. They've never dealt on the spiritual. So therefore, when you work there, then it makes sense. Then, according to their ability, then you start bringing it down into a practical application. That will have more of the, standard religious, let's say, traditions. But otherwise, the principle of it, then that they can do. Right? Whatever it is, the principle always works in any kind of situation. Is that yeah? So it's just like dressing. You dress like someone who's cultured. That's the principle. So in the spiritual world, cultures means the dhotis and sort like this. But the principle can be applied here in any kind of dress. So whatever would be the proper cultured dress, then you do that. So if you're Papua New Guinea, the proper appropriate amount of mud that you have on your head, that's what you should be wearing, right? Like that. Yeah, you don't wear less, and don't wear more, and that I'm special, right? Just the right proper amount, Does that make sense? Yeah. Like that. Okay. Okay. Text 12. Pure devotional service rendered to the Supreme Lord is spiritually so potent that simply by hearing about such transcendental service, by chanting its glories in response, by meditating on it, by respectfully and faithfully accepting it, or by praising the devotional service of others, even persons who hate the demigods and all other living beings can be immediately purified. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented that the word Saddharma refers to Bhagavat Dharma. This is also conferred by Sridhar Swami. Bhagavat Dharma is spiritually so powerful that even those who, by worldly standards, are implicated in various ways in sinful behavior can easily be purified by adopting any of the processes mentioned in this verse. Right? So then, hearing about the Lord, chanting, remembering, all these aspects you can always do, right? So that's there, even if your situation isn't ideal. Then from getting purified, then you can start to make adjustments in your situation. So then anything that is improper, you can adjust. You can bring it to the proper platform. Like you were saying, somebody being in passion or ignorance, then they can start to function in a higher position. But it's only devotional service that can actually bring them up. That's the thing. Does that make sense? Yes. In other words, they're in a particular position because of their karma. So the material action and reaction. So if you use just material karma, you're not going to be able to change that. Right? Because they don't have the qualification. But if you use devotional service, that's transcendental. By that, they'll get purified. Then it naturally, in a purified state, they'll function on a higher platform.
Yeah, we all experience that because at one point we weren't devoted.
Right. Yes.
And the minute you start to do devotional services, the light goes on.
Yes,
You know
yes.
what's going on.
Yes, yes.
We've been going around and around and around in the boring old whatever.
Yes, yes.
Suddenly there's this change.
Yes. So that's it, because it happens by devotional service. So the main point that's being brought out here is that pure devotional service, that will do that. Other things won't. So that's why they're mentioning about the demigods. It's not the ideal position because they're functioning just in goodness, right? And they'll have the devotional moments. But the pure devotees, then they're always functioning in pure goodness. So yeah. Text 13. Today you have made me remember my Lord, the supremely blissful personality of Godhead, Narayana. The Supreme Lord is so auspicious that whoever hears and chants about him becomes completely pious. Right? So by Vasudev's questions, now he's remembering about the Lord. So he's considering that is very, beneficial, very perfect. So that's the whole point, is that the inquiry should remind you of Krishna, the discussions should remind you of Krishna, the application reminds you of Krishna. It's always about Krishna. That's then the whole idea. Right? He's the beginning, he's the middle, he's the end. Right? So he's the, he's the alpha and the omega. Yeah, so all these things you can, yeah. You have to say that kind of in that monotone kind of voice, with a little bit of reverb in the background, right? Right? Yeah, right. Yes. Hare Krishna. No, it's always around. It's real, but the positive is also more real. No, they have no control. Maya is controlling them. Yeah, but it has effect because everybody else is buying into it. Does that make sense? Yeah. Like that. Yeah, so it still remains like that. Yeah. So Srila Jiva Goswami has stated, the word Narayana in this verse refers to the incarnation of Godhead Narayana Rishi, who acted as Narada's spiritual master in this dharma. Srila Jiva Goswami has also pointed out the word smarita, he is brought back to memory, indicates because of Narada's absorption in the worship of Krishna, he had forgotten Lord Narayan. In other words, if intense engagement in devotional service makes one sometimes forget the personality of Godhead, by Krishna's arrangement, such a sincere servitor will again be reminded of the personality of Godhead. Right? So he's doing one aspect, and then, but his deity is Narayan, so then it'll come back the other way. So the point is by Krishna's grace, if you're absorbing yourself in service, even if you're not remembering, Krishna will arrange so that you remember. So that's the point, is you simply have to try to be trying to please Krishna. Then the whole process will work out really, really good. Does that make sense? Yeah? So you don't have to worry. Yeah? Okay, we'll stop here because I think the article will start in a moment. Jai. Srila Prabhupada ki, Samaveta Bhaktivinoda ki, Jai Nitai Gaura Premanandi. Haribo. Hare Krishna. Mm-hmm.